Okay, in case you didn't hear that, we are recording now, yeah. Or joining us. All right, so yes, our unit tonight is CHCCDE019, or Work Within a Community Development Framework. This is session 3, so we're finishing up the content tonight, and we'll be talking a little bit about your assessment as well. Before we get into it, okay, some housekeeping stuff to go through. So our acknowledgement of country, yeah, in this spirit of recognition or reconciliation, Hayter Institute of Education acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We recognize Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of this nation and the traditional custodians of the land on which we work, live, and study. We express our gratitude for the sharing of this land, our sorrow for the personal, spiritual, and cultural costs of that sharing, and hope that we may move forward together in harmony and in the spirit of healing. We pay our respect to all First Nations people and acknowledge elders past, present, and emerging. Our usual housekeeping. So our break times, we'll try and stick to them around 7 and 8. Please no smoking or vaping on camera. Cameras on, microphones on mute, please. And if you would like to say something in class, I strongly encourage you to do that, but please use your hand up signal before coming in and talking. As always, be respectful to others and be kind to yourself. And if you are feeling triggered by any of the content tonight, make sure you access your personal supports. All right. Some other ones for you to access for yourself if you so see fit, right, on your screen here. And of course, all of these slides are available in the resources tab on Accelerate if you need to access them outside of class. Okay, so let's dive in. So we're looking at community development, yeah, and in particular, looking at social structure tonight, yeah. So I want to start first just by coming up with a definition, right, when we talk about social structure. Okay, and then we'll be looking more about how this can create structural disadvantage for people, yeah? So anyone want to jump in first and have a go at defining what social structure is?
I don't mind having a go.
All right, have a go.
Okay, so social structure is all people in that particular community, and how they connect and engage with one another.
Yeah, good. So it's pretty much everything involved in a society, yeah? The relationships between the individuals, the institutions that we allow to exist and organize the society, our government or our form of government, our police forces, our emergency services, right? All of those normal things that we take as part of the society is what we see as creating the social structure. Okay. So structural damage, all right, can occur for a number of reasons. It can be because of socio and economic disadvantages that lead to the institutions not serving all parts of the society. And this is where we look at how we can deal with these damages and changes to the structure to make them more equitable and guarantee outcomes for everybody in the society, not just the advantaged people. All right. So that brings us to the topic, yeah, structural disadvantage. Okay. Can come in a number of forms. The most common one is around money and finances, but it can also be around access to education or healthcare systems, access to other infrastructure like internet and telephony. Okay. There are many, many ways that certain sections of society can be disadvantaged by the social structure. Right? Now, we work in community services. A lot of the time, we need to advocate and try to deal with these structural inequities. Yeah, we're doing that, as it says there, change the impact on disadvantaged individuals, families, or groups. Yeah, and that can come through a change in legislation or an increase in ability inside the actual group that you are advocating or working for. Right. Some of the common marginalized groups in Australia, disabled, CALD, and First Nations people, right? Particularly First Nations and disabled people are very much in the focus of a lot of social change at the moment, you might say. Sorry about that. Just got a bit of a computer freeze there. Okay, so we're going to start now with just a little bit of a video looking at a place called Burabinda, once known as the most in Australia. And this is just about a program where certain groups inside this community have worked to change the outcomes for people in the town. Didn't work for anyone. So Leanne, you were having problems with it, yeah? All right, hang on. I'm just going to put a link.
80% of dogs have dental disease. About half of dogs are
in the chat just to straight to the YouTube page for you, so you can watch it again. All right. Okay, so we're just going to go into some breakout rooms now, just to have a little bit of a chat. In particular, I want you to talk about the programs that you did here. If you are having trouble with it, please feel free to watch the video again before you go into your breakout room. You're going to have a good 10 minutes together here. So two things to discuss here. What programs are they already up and running there? And then come up with one or two ideas in your group about what other things you think they could do, right, to start improving social outcomes for everybody in the community in Burabinda. Okay. Where did we get to now? 16. So I'll make this 4 breakout rooms there. So be in groups of 3 or 4 in here. We've got 10 minutes to discuss this. Remember 2 things, yeah? What's already happening in Burabinda and what's 1 or 2 other ideas you can come up with. That's what I want you to share with the group when you come back. Okay. All right. There we go. It should be coming to you now. All right, so all coming back now, just waiting on a couple more. So we're getting ready. So room 1 then was Christine, Jana, and Philip. Hey,
Yep.
you want to share some of the programs that are already happening in Woorabinda, yeah?
Yep. So we're just sort of like Yana's actually traveling sort of thing and stuff. So she was listening in. So Christine, myself, we come up with a conversation. Basically, we identified like there was like a synergy garden center. There was a women's shelter. Like there was like smaller developments basically that for the community for what we can pick up because the video is a bit like choppy from what we could hear. So yeah, basically we talked like basically if we want to develop that community more, like they were looking for statistics from the Bureau of Statistics rather than maybe sort of like engagement with the community. We found the community was sort of like going into a circle rather than sort of like trying to get out of that circle.
Yep.
And that's so, things that they might like, development of elders, draw on the positives of town, like as in go and ask the town what they like. They might, they might be interested in basketball. So if we build like a basketball shelter or basketball place, like, give pride to that community or give purpose.
Okay, yeah, good. Room 2, that was Leanne, Mark, and Viola. What were a couple of your ideas for other things they could be doing in Woorabinda?
Yeah, I'm speaking on behalf. Leanne's video wasn't working and Viola wasn't in the room. Yeah, I've just got I picked up the community garden, what they're doing there. It's a bit hard without the demographic and the population of the town to work out what services they'll be needing. But I've got down skate parks. We look at getting some sporting grants for like maybe getting a PCYC there. I imagine there's
Yep.
youth people there, so yeah, some funding for that.
Yeah, good.
Got it.
Okay, room 3, Ben, Louise, and Nathan. What were a couple of your ideas?
Okay, we had some of the same challenges of not knowing the demographics, and I'm sure they're doing many other projects. And the two main ones they highlighted with the op shop and the horticultural initiative. But it's great that they're reinvesting back into the community. But the questions we had really were about, are they engaging with the whole community? So is that community engagement active about making sure that everybody in the community has a voice and has input in what initiatives they want? And the second one I raised was about businesses. Are businesses engaged? Are they there? And are they engaged in the community as well?
Okay, good. All right, and room 4, Don, Kathleen, and Kate. What were a couple of your ideas that Woorabinda could be doing?
Okay, I'll go ahead. Sorry, we didn't discuss who would speak. We all had trouble hearing the video, but we identified some of the things that they were doing, such as taking an individualistic approach to their community development, with the aim of improving their circumstances, which was predominantly disadvantage in terms of income, education, employment and housing. And we noted the therapeutic horticulture. I don't think any of us were able to hear about the op shop, so thanks, Louise. But we did discuss that perhaps they could apply for more government grants for things that they deemed appropriate. And we agreed that without us actually knowing that community, that we're not going to know what they actually need. But we did focus a bit on that horticulture, the therapeutic horticulture. and wondered if they could develop that into perhaps a larger business to sell wholesale. And we also discussed the possibility of them developing a bush tucker industry, given the concerns of people generally regarding climate change and modern farming methods. And just a thought that I had as we were taken out of our groups is perhaps if they're developing a bush tucker industry, they could also work on developing a tourist more of a tourist industry to help people understand their culture.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you all for sharing that. That was nice work. Yeah. So a pretty common theme between what you were saying there is was talking about well, empowerment. Yeah. So what we're going to be having a look at now are some strategies for empowering communities. Before we get into that, Kathleen, you're already on microphone. You want to tell us exactly what empowerment is, or what's your understanding of empowerment?
My understanding of empowerment is having people recognise their own strengths and for other people to encourage them in utilising people's own strengths for personal development or for development purposes. So when you're empowering a community, you're allowing them to make decisions for themselves. When you're empowering an individual, again, you're allowing them to and encouraging them to make decisions for themselves.
Yeah, good. Right, and that's something we should probably all be pretty familiar with in the industries we work in. But yeah, that's a very, very comprehensive definition there. Yeah, supporting people to take control of their own lives and take control of the decisions that affect their lives. Yeah. So around empowering communities is nothing really different. Yeah. But you see up there on the top left of this one, yeah, really the first part in understanding that is creating awareness about the inequalities, right, in a society. Yeah. So obviously that's what you want to work to change. So you first need to define what it is that you're aiming for, and then focus on the resources and the services that can help them with those ones. Yeah. Your aim being to increase their skills and their knowledge so that they need less supports. But in the time before that's happening, obviously you're distributing social benefits in a way that is most effective for that community, and then working on reforming the institutions that have created that inequity. And that could possibly be the organization that you work for. Australia has a pretty good social benefits system, but it's far from perfect. So it's very likely that the institutions that you're working for are the ones that will need to be reformed and change the way they do these to deal with these inequities. Yeah. There'll be other things as well, but yeah, it's just worth noting. Yeah, and quite often that could be self-assessment or for the company that you're working for. Rightio. I'm going to get into our main project for tonight. Yeah, so we're going to spend a good long while working on this. Yeah, so it's about 20 to 7 now. So I'm going to give you half an hour actually to prepare these ones, and then we'll have a little break and come back after our break and actually be presenting to the group. Yeah. So, and I'll post these into the chat just so you get more of it. But basically, I want you to be working on in small groups to identify 3 specific strategies for 4 points that I'm about to get you. All right, and they're the 4 points that we just had up on that slide. Yeah, creating awareness, distributing social benefits, increasing skills, knowledge, and capacity so they can act on their own behalf, and reforming social institutions and involving people in working for social change. Right, so those are the 4 areas or the 4 points that you're discussing. And in your groups, I want you coming up with what it says here, at least 3. So we'll go with two or 3 specific strategies for each of the 4 points. So you're looking at between 8 and 12 here total. And you're going to have a good half an hour to work together. So go away, use your learner's guide, right? In chapter 3 of that one as well. Use Google, use any other resources from your other units or what. Really want you getting creative and pulling together a lot of information from various sources here. And then when we've done through the preparation, I want you to come back and have about 4 to 5 minutes where you're just presenting to the group. And for this one, I would like everybody in your group to actually be part of the presentation, not just one spokesperson presenting for you, yeah? So you can divide the points up however you want, but working together to create a presentation, 4 to 5 minutes, that we'll then share with the other groups when we come back. And I know that was a lot of information, so once you get into your groups, I'll put all that into the chat so you have it there to read and work through. All right, is there any questions about that? Yes, okay, Kathleen.
Number 1, someone's still got their mic on. I think.
Yeah, is that Leanne?
Yeah, I don't want to. No, someone else. Oh no, it's been turned off now. That's good.
Yeah.
Could you please just a little bit more slowly list what those 4 points were again?
Oh, I'm going to put them in the chat for you, Kathleen, so you can read while you're doing it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, it's a lot too much to try and remember. Yeah, I understand. Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? All right, so let's get in. Oh, sorry, there's one more here. No, that's okay. Rightio, let's get you into your breakout rooms. When you're ready, yeah.
Okay, so I was the one to do the first one. So strategies, investing in education and skills development. In that way, maybe courses could be reduced at a lower cost. I know the Victorian government at the moment is free for nurses because of their lower skills. Maybe they could do it across the board for all different education. The other one was implement social protection and measures and combating discrimination, getting equal opportunity, reducing poverty, promoting appropriate legislations with policies and actions, and recycle more and reduce transport. I think transport is a huge cost on low income earners, getting to and from work, and free health, which
Okay.
aids into preventing the diseases for like measles and rubella and that, where they don't have to pay. Like when we were in COVID, like none of us had to pay for
Vaccinations, yeah. Right.
yes, for vaccinations and stuff like that. So I think it would help.
Good. All right. Who else do we have in your group?
So Rosie was the second
Rosie's
one.
next. Okay.
Yeah, so I looked at strategies for working out how you would distribute social benefits. And so I looked first at like doing a needs assessment, because just identifying in the first place what the community, either on an individual basis or like community groups, are finding out who's most in need, who's most vulnerable and facing the biggest challenges. You need that to have that information first. And then once you've got that kind of information, strategies for actually working out how you would distribute those sort of things, developing like assessment protocols and guides, because you're not going to have an infinite pool of resources. There's always going to be more need than there is resources. And whether it's fair or unfair, there's got to be some way of deciding who's a priority for getting those services. And then just the third strategy, just looking at like regular evaluation and adjustment, to make sure that the resources that are being distributed are still being used appropriately, fairly, and not being wasted. So we're just maximising the use of those resources. And that's the sort of the three that I came up with. I'm not sure if that's right or wrong.
Oh, that was very good. Thank you for sharing. Who else do we have with there? Nathan and Don, yeah? Who's up next, Nathan or Don? Okay,
Don was
Don.
the next
Yeah.
one.
Okay, Don. Oh, we can't hear you, Don. No. Okay, you want to try and work on that? Nathan, you want to jump in and do your one while Don tries to fix a mic?
So I was doing reforming social institutions and involving people. One way could be inclusive decision making, so set up processes where the community members can participate in planning and decision making.
Good.
Another strategy could be lobby for changes by working alongside lawmakers to create and pass new laws that ensure fairness and justice for everyone. And the last strategy was form alliances, so join forces with other organizations, community groups to strengthen efforts for change.
All right. Yeah, three very good points there. Well done. Don, how
Can
you
you
going?
hear me there? Can you hear
Yeah,
me
okay.
now?
We can
Yeah.
hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. There are three strategies to improve the clients. The first one is review the client details, review their strength, personality, and habits, so we can set the goal for them via their strength. So that will be help the client to empower themselves. The second strategy is like setting the goal for them. So based on their strength, so that will help them to more comfortable to follow the goal if they want to reach that goal. The third strategy is like we reward the clients for successful action. That's what I can find for the three strategies I find out to
Okay.
empower the client.
Good. Thank you very much, Don. All right, let's have a listen to room 3, yeah? So Jana, Jenny, and Louise, when you're ready.
So I had the first one, and it was how can we create awareness about equalities in society? And we can do that through social media platforms. We can create awareness through blogs or just any sort of social media. We could also do it through like any art forms to the community.
Yep, good.
Yep.
Okay. Who is next in your group?
I'll be the next one.
Jenny, yeah.
I have the 3 strategies of distributing a social benefits. Advocating for and implementing a policies that ensure social benefits and distributed equity. I can't really pronounce the words equally.
Yeah.
This could include like policies related to healthcare, housing, maybe also educations, and the community outreach. It could outreach for to ensure that individuals are aware of the social benefits available to them and understand how to access what the benefits they are getting. Also about the maybe partnership with non-profit organizations that could distribute social benefits to those in need.
Okay, good. Yeah, there's a nice point about increasing people's awareness of what social benefits they have. Yeah, it's a lot easier to distribute when people are actually aware of what they can access. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Good. And I think that leaves you, Louise. Yeah.
Yep. So we've got the increased skills, knowledge, and capacity. We came up with 2 main ideas there, whether it's training programs or workshops to build capacity in the community, to like developing practical skills such as financial literacy and getting people job ready. The second main one was actually develop a community-based project that helps build the community's capacity. So they can kind of, people can learn on the job, develop skills, and then that really helps for future employment. Using that example of like the horticultural initiative on the video. The next one was about the work to reform social institutions.
Yep.
And we talked about to form a community action group to help advocate for social change. And then secondly, which I think the last group raised, collaborate with different institutions such as schools, law agencies, hospitals, housing, to work together to lobby for change to benefit that community.
Very good. All right, so yeah, lobby groups, that's good. So we're coming up to talk a little bit more about that later in the lesson, yeah? So it's a good point. All right, where were we at? Room 4. Who do we have there? Was Christine, Philip, and Viola, yeah? Yeah, who's up first?
I can go first, Philip, if you like.
Yeah, sure.
We talked about the creating awareness, so creating awareness through building a campaign which includes local radio, posters, graphics, community newsletters, social media, you know, toolbox meetings, community meetings. We also talked about building knowledge and skills and working with local businesses to, for example, doing creating social enterprises where people get on-the-job training. Could be cafes, could be garden centres, community centres, that sort of thing. But developing kind of doing some research beforehand as well, and kind of trying to identify what people are interested in doing, what motivates them, what's their what's the level of skill that they're working from to begin with, so that you can kind of then build on that. Yeah, so Philip, do you want to take over there?
Did you want to jump in, Viola?
We've got Viola.
I don't think she's there.
That's right. She had just a crying baby
Right.
before, so she might be a bit tied up. So one was to identify benefits and how we distribute and support, and to grow on baselines and develop skills. So like identify the skills or the gaps, and basically yeah, to work to develop those skills. Actually, no, we just said that. Oh no. And stuff. Educate. So for institutions, and the last point, like educate the institutions and identify what their support networks are when somebody comes out of that, basically to provide services. So to address the client's gaps or the community's gaps and empower them, and also to educate people to develop support services for their community.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Philip. Seems like we don't have Viola yet.
No,
Nope.
it doesn't.
All right, no worries. Okay, room one. Are you with us now? Ben, Kathleen, Mark?
Yeah, but we sort of, I don't think we did exactly what everyone else did. But I've just looked up one thing for each question.
Yeah. All right, just share what you've got with us. That's fine.
So create awareness about inequalities to change the way resources, services, and other social benefits are distributed. I've got valuing and supporting human rights, empowers communities to address the structural disadvantage, supporting human rights to increase social justice, fairness, and equality is a key aspect of working within a community development framework. For increasing skills and knowledge and capacity, I had participation and inclusion by access to opportunities to enhance their skills and develop their skills to take back to the community, like individually, and work to reform social institutions and involving people in working for social change. I put identifying gaps in services and resources to be able to improve the policies and procedures for referrals. Yeah, that's what I sort of came up with.
All right, nice. Kathleen and Mark, you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I've got some for increasing skills and knowledge and capacity, engage and empower. So empower some people who are affected or interested in planning and decision-making process. This means inviting them to participate, listen to their needs and preferences, providing them with relevant information and feedback, and enabling them to influence outcomes. Yeah. And another one would be to educate and train.
Yep, good.
So, yeah, community members on the skills and knowledge that are required for planning and decision making. This could include providing them with workshops, courses, mentoring, yeah, and coaching.
Okay, nice. All right, Kathleen?
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that there can be huge inequities, which therefore cause inequalities, generated by people either not having good networks to IT and communication technologies, or not having the resources. For example, it might depend on what school you go to as to whether or not you've got a computer to work with. so that disadvantages children from the start, and also educating people, you know, that generation of people that hasn't grown up with technology-based information, so that they can actually work within society. You know, if you're disadvantaged in terms of information technology, then you're disadvantaged across the board.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's fast becoming another form of illiteracy. Yeah, so it used to be reading and writing was a barrier to entry into workforce and that, but yeah, like a lack of ability with technology is fast becoming a similar sort of problem now.
Yeah, so we also discussed with you, Ben, that distribution of social benefits and organisations having the discretion to dish out, well, not to dish out, to provide social benefits, for example, rent assistance, and having appropriate referral strategies and networks tonight I'm struggling tonight. Yeah, to have referral strategies and network screening processes, and when somebody might be referred to an organisation, and for example, the prisoners who went to Rainbow House, who were very privileged to be able to go to Rainbow House, and it had strict rules about how people were to behave in the house, and if somebody was to, for example, take drugs, they would be warned about breaking those rules, and they'd be kicked out so that somebody else could use those resources.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So have we missed anyone there? I feel like there was another person in your room. I can't remember.
It was Leanne.
Leanne. Is she with us? No, I can't see Leanne. Maybe she's jumped off. All right, anyway, so you had a lot of good ideas there, touching on what we need to do. A lot of them based around bottom up, like understanding the people that you're providing services to first, and then providing what they need, which is very, very good. And for this sort of thing to happen, it does very much require that sort of strategy as well. But it's such a large-scale project that probably the best way to think about it is these structures are changed when it needs to happen at all levels. Yes, so yes, there's a lot of bottom-up design and what supports they're provided for. There also needs to be some top-down decisions made. Yeah, so at some point somebody has to decide what is available. Yeah, or what resources we have to put into this. And probably more importantly, something that's not talked about a lot is that there very much needs to be a middle-out approach, which is important for you guys as well. So I'm sure you've heard of the terms top-down decisions and bottom-up decisions before. Middle-out decisions is something that isn't talked about a lot, but is very much right in the area that you'll be working in, yeah? And you will have a responsibility on that, is that you can influence both sides of these, yeah? And so therefore your input into how these resources are done should be also be valued and should inform what projects and programs are put into place, yeah? Or how they're funded and various other things like that. Okay, so one of the things we touched on there was talking about well, basically the whole thing. We say we're talking about our social justice and human rights, yeah? So we're going to move on with looking at some points around that now. So just going back to our PowerPoint. Share that with you. All right. Okay, good. So human rights and social justice, yeah, two very topical things in the world at the moment. Okay. And we look at these from 3 points, yeah, the family, the individual, and the society. Yeah, so obviously at the simplest level, we're talking about the human rights and justice for the individual, right? And the points we've talked about there, access, right, to the same opportunities as everyone else, yeah, right? The dignity in their life, respect for them as a human being, and then the ability to determine their own path in life, yeah. Family, right? We move up to like groups and talking our most tightest group, yeah, and we're looking at again, health and safety, right? Access, this time though, we're probably talking more to like social institutions such as education, welfare, health, employment, housing, all of those sort of things. And a higher level need in the family, or a higher level right, you might say, is economic security. So this comes around not just having access to employment, but having access to long-term permanent employment. Yeah, and just giving that sense that, all right, okay, I'm okay today, but I'm also okay into the future. Yeah. And then in society, we're looking at the things we're talking about now: equality, participation, sustainability, and the resources and the services that we have. We're pretty lucky in Australia. Obviously, things are not perfect here. We're always trying to do better, but we do have a lot of resources and services available, which is exactly the industry that you guys will be working in if you're not already. All right, social inclusion. This is based on the idea that the society as a whole benefits by the inclusion of all the members of the society. Yeah, so it's not just those that are currently marginalized or excluded that benefit from being included, right? Society as a whole, right, does better, right? So when everybody is involved in the economic, political, social, and cultural parts of community life, then the society as a whole is richer and more prosperous. Okay. And there's a lot of barriers, you might say, to this. So some of those barriers are what we were talking about before. So access to basic things first is the most important. So food, water, and shelter, right? Our most basic needs. Yeah. Obviously, not having access to that is a massive disadvantage, but that also applies to some of our higher level needs, like access to community services, education, clothing, healthcare, employment, and then also, if we're reaching that level, it can also be the ability for freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, right? Things we kind of take for granted, but that's also can be barriers to social inclusion. Yeah, not so much in Australia, but in other parts of the world, that is still the case. All right. So we're going to have a look at a video here that is discussing some of these points. Yeah. So while you're listening, and I will endeavor again to put this link in the chat for you in case you can't hear it properly. So it's about 3 minutes long. So just listening to how they're talking about social justice and human rights in this video, and we'll have a little chat about it when we come back. Yeah, everyone can hear that okay? So there's 3 main things they were talking about there, yeah? Who can tell me what the first one was?
High
Kelly, you wanna have a go?
suicide rate.
Sorry, what was that, Kay?
A high suicide rate.
Yeah, that was the problem. Yeah, what did they put in place to deal with it? Yeah.
So with the sporting groups, they did skills and training, and 2 of them to know how to survive through the crisis, and talking about it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and
encouraging the men with family violence and talking about it and getting them into groups.
oh yeah, that was the second one. So yeah, thinking about the so yeah, basically they tried to train more community members to be able
Yes.
to deal with people having crisis. Yeah. So you're thinking about our 4 points from before. What point is that really dealing with? Yeah. In changing social structures.
Participation and inclusion.
Yeah, good. Right. It's increasing their capacity and increasing their inclusion in their own results. Yeah, good. All right. The second program that they were doing up there in Catherine, Louise, what was that about?
Unfortunately, I didn't hear it all.
No, did anyone hear point 2 there?
No, I heard the first one, but not the second.
The point 2 was reducing violence, specifically domestic violence, and they identified 72% of people in prisons was like due to violence.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that's where they set up the community committee of safe space.
So there was about bringing men out or speak against violence. Yeah. So it was a men's group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the safe space group? Was that what they talked about, or?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they created a safe space for the men's group to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And the third program they had up there?
Improving on their health status.
Good. Yeah. In particular in aged care. Yeah. So what was their interesting program that they had up there?
The Red Cross Power of Humanity.
Yeah. And what the program they had in place is what they call share bedding. Yeah. So they're having people from same communities come in and be able to use the facilities together. Yeah. So a good example of point 2 we're talking about before, like sorry, I think it was 3 actually, the distribution of benefits. Yeah. So they're finding useful ways to get the most advantage out of the benefits that they have up there. Rightio. So looking at some personal issues. Now, in particular here, what we're looking at is when it might be one or maybe a small group of a society have something particularly bad, you might say, or struggling particularly with something, yeah, and they find a way to move this into the public area. Okay, and what we'll be looking at from doing that sort of thing is, again, going over informed consent, which I'm sure you've seen before, and duty of care. So let's start with the duty of care one. Okay. Just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, and you'll hear from them later, a very good example of this is the parents of Daniel Morecambe. So obviously they were victims of a terrible tragedy there when they lost their son. But from that, they have started the Daniel Morecambe Foundation. They have the annual day for Daniel. Okay, so that's an example of what we're talking about here, when an individual or a small group in a society has gone public with a cause to change social structures. Yeah. Now, obviously, that has some consequences that they bring up here. So those two people have obviously had to relive that experience a lot, which is very distressing for them and brings in a lot of attention, and their loss of privacy and even their relationships can come from that. Yeah. Now, this is probably something that or hopefully you won't need to do yourselves, but you might find your clients are in a position of considering doing this. Yeah. So it's important for you to understand these points and be able to tell them about these support strategies we've got here on the right. Yeah. Now that will come down to knowing the support services that you have available to you. Obviously, before they make the decision to go public, it's very, very important that you keep that information to yourself, and even afterwards, right? That your client or anybody else or yourself, if you're in this position, you're the only people that can decide what information is made public and what remains confidential. Okay. And again, you're in the situation where someone's doing this, you have to be impartial, as it says at the bottom there. So you're not encouraging them to take any particular path if they decide to do this, but you make sure that they get everything that they need to make the decision that's best for them, is the way to think about it. Yeah. So as usual, your duty of care is to make sure that your client is put in a situation that's the best for them. Yeah. And it's not being influenced unduly by other people or organizations who might have different motivations to them. Oops, sorry, I passed to that. All right. So policies and procedures for referrals. Again, these are very similar to privacy laws and how would you say government policies for who can access what support. So they're going to be different in every state, and also different for every organization that you work with. Yeah. So just remember, the best way to think about this is your responsibility to understand your organization's policies and procedures for referrals, right? And to follow those to the letter, right? If you do that, then you will always be doing the job to the best of your ability. Yeah, that doesn't mean that your organization's policies and procedures are bulletproof, but that's something that's dealt with at the management level. Yeah. So when you're working with your clients, just keep that idea in your head, right? It's important for you to have a very clear understanding of your company's or your organization's policies and procedures, and to follow them appropriately for your referrals. Rightio. So I mentioned the Morcans before, so we're going to hear from them now. Yeah, just talking about their decisions around what they did after the death of their son. And we'll have a little bit of a chat about that when we come back. So this is only a quick one, yeah? It's only a minute long. I've just got to stop the recording for this. Okay, yeah, so for those of you who don't know, yeah, young Daniel was abducted and unfortunately killed on the Gold Coast, oh sorry, on the Sunshine Coast a long time ago now. Yeah, it's back in the early 2000s, I think. Yeah, it was a very, very famous case. Yeah, and from that, this is what his parents went on to do. Yeah. So can any of you think of any other examples of where people have gone on to do something like this?
Rosie Batty.
Yeah, Kathleen, can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, so actually I just bought her autobiography the other day. Haven't started it yet. But Rosie Batty was
Can't hear you.
Yeah, we lost you there, Kathleen.
sorry. Okay. So Rosie Batty was in a relationship, in a violent relationship, her and her son, Luke, and the police, it went on for a long time. The police did have an awareness of what was going on. So she had separated from her husband. And then one day, when her son Luke, I think he was 7 or 8 years old, I think. Can anyone correct me on that? Around about that age.
Around that age.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Philip. So the father appeared. I don't know if he was sort of sitting in the crowd. I don't know quite how, but at cricket practice one day, he approached Luke and bashed him to death with a cricket bat. And Rosie Batty, actually, I've read a little bit of the book. So, of course, she experienced great grief over that. And she calls herself an accidental hero because through her advocating against domestic and family violence, through her advocacy for domestic and family violence, and obviously by going public with what had happened to Luke, she eventually became Australian of the Year. So, and that's actually something that she was really quite torn about. But what she did say was that by being the Australian of the Year, because of Luke, meant that Luke's memory never left her, and she was thankful for that she wasn't losing his memory. But she has been, she continues even after that year of being Australian of the Year. It was only a few years ago that she was Australian of the Year, before Grace Tame. So it might have only been 3 or 4 years ago. And she has continued on advocating and for policy development and for funding for domestic violence. That's enough.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we're about at time for our second break. Yeah, so it's 8:14 here. So we'll come back at 8:20. We're getting a bit short on time, so I can't wait. Okay, so we're going to finish up tonight talking about a couple of words that have come up throughout the lesson already tonight. Yeah, that being advocacy and lobbying. Yeah, and two very powerful tools for changing the social structures that we've been talking about all night. Yeah. All right, so let's get into it. So looking at types of advocacy, yeah, you can think about it in having 3 main types. First one being self. So this is exactly as it sounds. This is where you go and try and influence people to get something for yourself. Yeah. Then you have individual. So this is where one person advocates on the behalf of another single person. Yeah. And then the final one is what we call systems. And this is, well, basically advocacy groups. Yeah. So you have an organization that is dedicated to influencing and changing the system. They usually deal obviously at the government level and try and change legislations and policies and laws rather than just deal with individuals and their circumstances. Right. So a very, I suppose you could call it a form of advocacy, but it's a lot more structured and a lot more regulated as well. And that is what they call lobbying. So these people deal directly with governments. And it specifically is focused on changing laws. Okay. So yeah, it's definitely very political. Okay, and it can happen at all levels of the government, yeah, local, state, and federal. Now, because these people deal directly with governments, there is a lot more regulation around what they can and can't do, and part of that comes in the form of a code of conduct. Okay, so this comes from the Attorney General of the country. And it is designed to control and regulate the activities of lobbyists, yeah? Okay. First of all, by defining what it is, yeah? And this is very, very, very structured to the point where any communication that a lobbyist has with any member of the government needs to be recorded, right? And failing to do so does leave both people open to prosecution in the future if they get caught not doing it. And basically, the reason is this is what they're going after. Yeah, they're trying to change laws, amend policies, get money through grants or funding, and quite often they'll be doing this on behalf of another person. Yeah, or even a company. All right, some exemptions to this. Okay. Right, just have a quick read through those. It's nothing too surprising that, right? Charities and religions obviously have been exempt for a long time. This is probably the interesting one on the bottom, sorry. The service providers, right? That's where it can get a little bit gray, right? So these people it's not their job to lobby and change things, but every now and then in the course of their normal job, they would need to act in a way that is similar to a lobbyist, yeah? Probably not something that's going to really affect us or you in your work, but yeah, something those people need to be aware of, yeah? And if they think it is crossing over the line, they're probably better off erring on the side of caution and like registering all their communications. Do any of you have any questions about who is actually exempt from these things? Pretty clear there. Okay. So it's not
sorry.
Yeah.
Just to interrupt. Are you meant to be sharing something there or not?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I am. So yeah, that's what I was sharing, yeah. These people here, okay, don't have to follow the lobbying code of conduct. I didn't share the whole lobbying code of conduct. It's a really big, massive document. You can Google it if you really have many hours that you don't want to spend doing anything else. Okay. But these groups here, charities, non-profits, individuals, foreign trade delegations, as in foreign governments, So tax agents, custom brokers, yeah, so they're already registered under some other scheme. And then the one we're talking about at the end there, the service providers who occasionally do lobbyist-like type work are also exempt because it's not their primary occupation. Okay. So that's who is covered by the code of conduct. It does go a bit further than just having a code of conduct though, and it does lay out exactly how they need to go about this sort of work. Yeah, this is what they call the principles of engagement. Yeah, and it is part of the code of conduct. I'll just give you a quick readout of what it is. Yeah. It's basically they have to use truthful and accurate statements, no corrupt, dishonest, illegal, or unlawful conduct, no misleading or exaggerated claims, which is an interesting one. Hard for that not to happen in the political arena. They have to separate their lobbying activity from their personal activity, so they can't start lobbying on their own behalf when they're actually doing it for their job, is what that means. And before they make any sort of communication or representation, they actually have to disclose that I am a lobbyist. Right? I'm here working as a lobbyist. I'm not here for myself or any other reason. This is my job. All right. So basically, in practice, that means that they have to register as a lobbyist. Yeah. Comply with all the sorry, John is coming back. Comply with all the obligations under the code. They have to keep their registration details updated. Yeah, so they cannot change companies or locations or advocate for different people without updating their details. And they have to do that almost immediately. They've got 2 weeks basically to do that. Yeah. So again, if you really want to read it, that's all part of that code of conduct that you can get. That's the things we were just talking about there. They're principles of engagement. So as you can see there, intelligent, good communicators would find a lot of wiggle room in those principles of engagement, yeah? Which gives us to the actual system that we have, yeah? Not as forthright and as honest as the code of conduct would have you believe, yeah? Okay. All right, might just do a quick 5-minute activity on this one. Yes, sorry, Kathleen, you want to say something? Can't hear you, Kathleen. Can you unmute, please?
Sorry about that.
No.
Just thinking about lobbying activities and where parliamentarians may actually cross the boundaries within Parliament by actually aligning themselves with somebody in a position of power and lobby on behalf of their electorate to have benefits. For example, the sports rorts example springs to mind. So that might have they lobby. Well, what they work is that they work in concert with somebody in a position of power, for example, the premier of a state, to actually achieve something for their electorate in order to win votes.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about pork barreling all the time. Yeah, it's a pretty common political tactic. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. I didn't, you've just given me the definition of pork barreling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. it's hard to how would you
I
say,
mean-
separate politicians in that regard. Yeah, whether you're a Liberal or a Labor supporter, you can't really say that neither side is really how would you say, pure in that term. Yeah, they're both
Yeah.
guilty of it at some point. Yes. Yeah.
It just seems that you know, the lobbyists themselves have got these such strict rules around their lobbying, and yet parliamentarians a lot of them seem to be able to get away with it.
Yeah,
But anyway,
that's interesting. Something I haven't looked in, but I imagine that their behaviour would be governed by a parliamentarian code of conduct. Yeah.
right. Okay.
I can't say that for sure, but I'm guessing they would have their own code of conduct that would be probably even more strict. Yeah.
Right.
But again, it comes down to how it's actually put into practice. Yeah.
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 Thanks.
Yeah. I'm not 100% on that one though. Yeah. I'm not really big up on like political policies and whatnot. So you might want to go and fact check that one. Yeah.
Yeah, they seem to end up in the courts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they get caught, definitely.
Yeah.
There you go. Philip has just shared with us. Yeah, public service has a code of conduct. Does that apply? Is there a different level of that for parliamentarians though, Philip? Oh, all right. So yeah, all right. So yeah, there's definitely a public service code of conduct.
It's for everybody, like police, volunteer, politician.
Yeah.
And
No, I work for the education department as
education
as well,
department's
yeah.
on the same sort of thing. So
Yeah. I thought there might have been something specific for parliamentarians though, yeah.
no, they're just not supposed to lie, that's all.
Yeah. Politician that doesn't lie. Interesting. Yeah. All right. So we've got time. We're going to do one quick activity here, yeah. So once you just in groups, you're going to find one example of how a community benefited from an advocate or a lobbyist, yeah. So we'll do this really quick, just find one example and then come back and we'll share it with the class. So we go into breakout rooms now. We've got 5 minutes basically to sort that one out, and then we'll come back and share. Okay, should be coming to you now. Back into 4 rooms again, yeah. One example each of how a community has benefited from the work of an advocate or lobbyist.
So we went back to Rosie Batty.
Right, yeah.
And how a community benefits from advocacy. And she has advocated absolutely amazingly. And even though she's been re-traumatized by having to tell her story publicly, she says that each time she tells that story, it does re-traumatize her. She's brought it into the spotlight, the family and domestic violence into the spotlight. She's sparked public debate. She's become a role model for women. She's influenced policy making. She's helped attract increased government funding. And she has also encouraged development of education programs for equality of the sexes and respect between genders in schools.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a very good example, yeah. Very high profile example. Nice. Okay, Ben, Louise, and Nathan.
Okay, we went with more general, but we went with trade unions.
Right, yeah.
So I was trying to think, we were trying to think of one that was probably fall under that category of that big code of conduct that you were thinking about. But yeah, trade unions, they will advocate for workers' rights and salaries and so forth, and then we'll lobby with the government to get changes as well.
And yeah, I mean, you compare workforces today compared to the 60s and 70s, and it's a lot less people dying today because of trade unions, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, room 3, Mark, Philip, Viola.
Yeah, so we had 3 ones. Viola come up with Mission Australia and Salvation Army advocating for homelessness. CWA, the Country Women's Association, in 1970, they basically lobbied the government for a change of legislation for the wearing of seatbelts after a road toll, which is up around 4,000. And there's a
Nice.
significant
Yeah.
bell graph that basically just dropped like the year after, like brought it down to about 1,200. And Bach had the pharmaceutical companies basically lobbying for the restriction or use of cannabis and that.
Yeah, Kathleen, you had something? Still on mute again, Kathleen. Probably good we didn't hear that one.
Wasn't the F word. The CWA have been fantastic on road safety, actually. And not only have they lobbied for seatbelts, but they also lobbied for the white line that goes along the edge of roadways.
No.
And they lobbied for proper baby car seats as well. So that's just another couple of areas of road safety that they've been involved in.
Yeah, good, nice. All right, and our last room. Who was that? Christine, Jenny, and Kate.
I'll talk if you like, Kay, and
Yep, go for it.
well, look, one good thing that springs to mind now. I'm not quite sure if it's as a result of lobbying, but on the Northern Beaches they have a system called the Pumpkin Bus, and basically what it is it's a free service for young people. There was a lot of problems in and around Manly late at night when the pubs closed and whatever, young people hanging around causing trouble, getting into fights, whatever. So they figured that if they can kind of get them out and home and whatever, so they introduced this public bus system called the pumpkin buses that run up and down the Northern Beaches, and the idea is basically get them out of Manly, and it has resulted in reducing crime and violence quite considerably.
Yeah, no, that's a good example.
Yeah. The other thing then, which is much more kind of on a higher level, I suppose, is the Northern Beaches Hospital. There was definitely lobbying going on for that. Prior to that, we just had Manly Hospital and Mona Vale Hospital, both very sort of outdated facilities, really, and not really adequate in dealing with the needs of the population. So now that we've got, now that the Northern Beaches Hospital is there, it's a much better system and process, and working very well.
Okay. All right, nice. Yeah, all very good examples there. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. So we've got one more little topic to cover tonight before we talk a little bit about your assessments. And it's something that you will do at some point in your career in community services, and that's around collecting data or doing research as they talk about it. And in particular here, they want to talk about primary data. So this is where you actually get the information from the people that are part of the study, yeah? And this can be done in 2 ways, by the people in the study or just by observing them, yeah? And there's also 2 types of data you can get. It's what they call quantitative data, which is literally that. It's talking about quantities of things. So it's objective numbers that you can get. So a week do you do this, right? Twice a week, right? And then there's what they call qualitative data. That's more around emotion or practical ways of using something. So, yeah, all right, while you were using this, how did you feel? Yeah, or in that situation, you know, what were you feeling? So obviously a lot harder to quantify than it is like a frequency. So lots of ways that this can be done. Yeah, besides observations, we just spoke questions, then focus groups and surveys. Has anyone not heard of focus groups? I think we've mentioned all these other three tonight before. No, so basically a very, very small group answering questions. Yeah, usually specifically chosen group to focus on a particular topic. Yeah. Main thing I wanted to talk about in this though is the ethical part of research. Yeah, and four main parts to this one. Obviously, you cannot harm anyone while you're researching. Yeah, not something that was always in place in the past. You have to be open, honest, and accountable for what you're doing. As usual, with the way you guys work, you need informed consent from everyone participating, right? Informed consent being, right, what they said. You can't just have them sign a waiver, right? They have to understand exactly what you're doing, like they would for any service that you provide them as part of your work, yeah? And obviously it has to be voluntary. So that is a really, really big topic that you could spend a long time on. Many, many different types of research that you might be called on to do and different ways of doing it. This is probably the four main things to keep in mind if you need to do it, yeah? As long as you follow those four things, you'll be pretty safe in whatever you're doing, yeah?